forces at the moment.
Let's talk a little bit about this now. About 2 or 3 hours back, there was a strange announcement that was made by the MOD of Kuwait, if I'm not mistaken, saying that there were several aircrafts that went down. Nothing was said after that, and everyone was speculating. And I want the visual of that previous crash. That's the one. That's the one that we're seeing. That F-15 fighter jet crashes in Kuwait. Now it turns out there were three.
Three of them. And that is
So,
the big question now, Rahul.
Friendly fire.
Is it going to enter, or is it only going to end at 3? Or are there more? Because you rightly highlighted that the Ministry of Defense in Kuwait has indicated that there were several jets which were down. Is it just 3? And is this just face-saving attempt by the US CENTCOM that they've admitted that 3 have been indeed down? But Kuwait's defense ministry has also indicated that there's been a barrage of missiles which was directed towards Kuwait, which is why I was also highlighting the damage of the US consulate in Kuwait. If you look at the visuals, the columns of smoke billowing out, not just from one particular area, because if there's a UAV striking, it only impacts one particular.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because there's no confirmation, but now we know that at least 3 F-15 fighter jets have crashed in Kuwait, and that could be because of friendly fire. I want to go across to Poonam again. Poonam, what are the other details that you're hearing about this? Because this confirmation came about 4 hours or 3 hours back, if I'm not mistaken, and there was this talk that it could have been several jets. That's what was said.
So now the confirmation is from the United States side that at least 3 of them have been downed. We don't know just yet if all of the 3 pilots ejected safely or not. One in which case we have the visual of that pilot was safe after ejection. We don't know if the other 2 in this case are safe or not. Also from the other side, the claims that are being made is that there were way more than 3. It's just that the United States has now confirmed that there are 3 that were shot down. But we don't know just yet what more assets of the United States, how many more fighter jets actually went down.
So these are pictures, and we made it into a 3-window, viewers, for you. First pictures you will see is of the death spiral. There you can see it, this plane, and we were talking to Tom Cooper a short while back, Poonam, and he was saying that it's because the engines were hit, apparently, that this has lost complete control and it's just spiraling downwards, falling to the ground.
Yeah.
And there you can see the ejected pilots. They've come out, isn't it?
Yes, there.
And there is one of the pilots that's in the back of the boot of the car. And he's sequestered there, and there was a whole ring of people around him saying that let's leave him alone and so forth, because there might have been the risk that someone might have actually harmed him. This news came up about 4 hours back.
Yes.
At that time, the MOD of Kuwait came out and confirmed this. Did they give us the reasons why this would have happened?
No reasons were given back then. The reasons that were given by all of the allies of the United States was that we will defend ourselves. If there are attack on our assets, on our soil from the United States in a bid to attack Iran, that's something that will be countered. This perhaps looks like one of those interceptions by the Kuwaiti side, which has led to those fighter jets going down, those fighter jets being hit in the first place, and then, of course, them coming spiraling down.
So, okay, more information coming in. Yes.
CENTCOM has in fact gone on to indicate that during active combat that included attacks from Iranian aircraft, mind you, ballistic missiles and drones. So as we've been discussing, this is not just about UAVs. Ballistic missiles were indeed involved. There were also Iranian aircraft which were looking towards attacking these US F-15s. This is when they were down. The US Air Force fighter jets were mistakenly shot down then by Kuwaiti air defenses. This is the word coming in.
So are you saying that ballistic missiles were fired by the Iranians to target probably some areas in the Gulf, and these planes were rallied to try and intercept those, and in that there is some confusion, and in that friendly fire this has happened? Is that, am I
also involving Iranian aircraft? Now, have they been able to violate the airspace in Kuwait is also the other big question, because this is information that has in fact been just shared. And this is a confirmation that has been done by the US Central
What you're
Command.
being told, and let me just quickly break this down for you, This is news coming in from Aman Sharma, posted in our groups. He's saying 3 US F-15s involved in friendly fire incident in Kuwait. The pilots are safe. So at least we know that the pilots are safe, Poonam. Yes, all 6 ejected. Okay, so this is datelined Tampa, Florida. And it says 3 US F-15E Strike Eagles flying in support of Operation Epic Fury went down over Kuwait due to an apparent friendly fire incident. During active combat that included attacks from Iranian aircraft, ballistic missiles and drones, the US Air Force fighter jets were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses. All 6 aircrew ejected safely have been safely recovered, are in stable condition. Kuwait has acknowledged this incident, and we are grateful for the efforts of the Kuwaiti Defense Forces and their support in this ongoing operation. The cause of the incident is under investigation, but they've just said it's friendly fire. Additional information will be released as it becomes available. So there are wheels within wheels here. So now we know there was some sort of a dogfight.
You know, you opened the show an hour ago when you were talking about Donald Trump and his claims during Operation Sindoor. This is exactly where this conflict is also revolving around. Where is the truth? What are the claims being made? What are the counter claims coming in now?
I want to bring in Poonam here. If you remember, Poonam, for the last 8 months after Operation Sindoor, Trump has been claiming that India lost the war because we lost aircraft.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit here in triumphalism. I'm not going to say that this is, you know, karma, etc., etc. But fundamentally, would he extend that logic to what the Americans are doing? Would he now come out and say that, oh, because we lost 3 aircraft, we're on the losing side?
Given how temperamental and whimsical Donald Trump can be, I'm guessing that's not the stance that he would take. He would say, like they've come out and said, this is friendly fire, and they couldn't really do anything about it. In fact, they've also gone on to say we're thankful for the Kuwaiti defenses, that all of our pilots were taken in safely, and that at least our crew is safe. But the cost of this war is being borne by the United States. 3 of their jets have gone down, and that's a cost that they'll have to bear for a war that they clearly didn't go in thinking as to what the end game really was. And that's something that the Trump administration will now have to look at as well. Unfortunately, Rahul, I'm completely out of time. I do have to take a quick break here on this edition, but our wall-to-wall coverage on this conflict in West Asia will continue. Do tune in and continue watching our coverage here on CNN News 18 as we get you those minute-by-minute updates.
That's exactly the point that we've also been discussing, and Tom was also saying that the target is meant to be these US assets in these ally countries, but because these are densely populated areas, they are inadvertently hitting civilian targets, because if civilians were indeed the target, the casualties could have been in hundreds.
That is, to use the American terminology, collateral damage.
Right, right. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, the sheer escalatory nature of this, as Ambassador Dogra was also highlighting, they've gone on to ask for Germany's help. They're also trying to involve France over here, because, say, UK has already reacted. In fact, Sir Keir Starmer also spoke about their fleet being involved. But if NATO were to get involved, what is the end game of this war? If NATO and these Middle Eastern US allies were to get involved, what happens?
So look, while
and
I
Iran
think,
has already indicated that they are not looking towards any negotiations now.
Yeah, Kansha, it's too early for Iranians to talk about negotiations. It's just, again, this is something, not a war which is being fought between 2 street people. That also goes for a very long time. We are fighting a war with 2 military powers and 2 nations and 2 ideologies which are totally disparate and different. And it's about survival of Iranian regime's thought process, which is absolutely contrarian to this thing. While the Gulf states have already changed their thought process and they have aligned to the Western ideology to a great extent, but Iranians are totally polar opposite, and they have never changed their views for the last about 45-50 years. They remain where they remain. So to believe that it's going to just crumble, IRGC is not just not a slap dog onto a street that they can wish away. They will fight, they will control, and this will go on for some time. But I just want to add both the countries, the Israelis and Americans, and a lot of time people are saying that Trump has put Israel first this time. I don't think so. I think it's a war of Americans with Iran, and it is something to do with the Chinese. It is just not about Iran
Yes.
itself.
Yes,
So
I'm
let's
glad you said
put
that.
out. Yeah, so I think I told last time also on your this thing on your channel, but American immediate political objective is to change the strategic orientation of Iran. They should give up the ballistic missile systems, and because that was threat not only to America but more importantly to Gulf states eventually. So if you recall, while Saudi Crown Prince has said about a month back they will not allow their own airspace and ground to be attacked for Iran. But the fact of the matter is that he was the one who went urging, and Trump has said as much, that he came to me and telling this is going to be eventually a challenge. Because when the ballistic missile numbers, which in 2027 they were aiming to make to 8,000, that crosses, and the speed of missile crosses, there was no way Saudis could have protected themselves. So that is one, I think they want to change. The second, they want to change orientation was about the nuclear ambition, with 440 kgs of uranium lying with them for 60% enriched. It was just matter of time, I think, in a couple of months. Right? The process of integrating, process of weaponizing further takes time, but they would have had the capability to use nuclear weapons. So this was, I think, the Americans wanted, but look at it from the Iranian side. Iran is a sovereign nation. They wanted to have a weapon, nuclear weapons. When Pakistan, which is a terrorist state, known terrorist state, can have nuclear weapons and Americans can continue to engage with them, Israel can have in the region, why should not Iran have its own? So I think these were two polarized actions that are taking place, and both have their own mission, and therefore they are both legitimate to fight the war, even at the cost of regional conflict with a global implication. I guess that's how the world works. Not a good world, but yes.
Yeah, and even when it comes to Iran's nuclear ambitions, we've seen a lot of ups and downs, and that's where the United States began playing a key role and almost now dictating to Iran on what it must do next. Hold on, gentlemen, I'll come back to you in just a bit. I want to quickly go across to Shivani. She's being joined by Tom. We need to break down the story, take you through the latest visuals coming in, and also an overview, an analysis of what the impact of this conflict could look like. Shivani, over to you.
Thanks a lot. We're focusing on that F-15 downing that has taken place in Kuwaiti airspace. And these are the visuals of at least one of those American pilots. He's sitting in the boot of a car, lying down. And we can easily identify, Tom, that this is the American uniform and the American airman.
By his khaki uniform, for example, and G-suit and the survival gear tied to his belly, for example. This is clearly a U.S. Air Force airman.
But there would be two pilots, isn't it?
Yes, in an F-15E, there would be two of them. I haven't seen the video showing both of parachutes, so I don't know what happened to the second gentleman.
You can hold this mic as well, Tom,
Yes.
Since I have my own. So the other pilots' whereabouts, we don't know.
We don't know.
We've only managed
Right now,
to really get information on one of the pilots. So one of the pilots is secure, and these must be the Kuwaiti people who must have intercepted this downed pilot, but they're going to take him to the US base now.
probably to the US base or to the Kuwaiti police, Kuwaiti armed forces, and then to the US base.
Yeah. How rare is it for an F-15 to be downed?
Quite rare. It is actually...
Has it happened?
It has happened. I'm currently counting in my head. It's some 4th or 5th combat loss in total.
Okay.
Over 30
so it's
years.
Pretty rare. So it's pretty
Since 1991, yes. Pretty rare, yes.
This is that footage.
This is the F-15.
What can you make of this footage?
Well, you can make that it's an F-15 by two fins. You can make it by the form of its, plan form of its wing. You can make it out by, if you look under the intakes, there are pods. These are targeting pods, navigation and targeting pods, which this is what you see then the video of bombs striking. This is usually taken by this pod under the aircraft. And you can see that the engines are burning.
What does that mean?
That probably the explosion was behind the aircraft, approximately here, causing damage to the engines. Probably removing one of the slabs. This is the stabilizers, because the right one is visible. The left one not. So this is why it lost control.
Yeah.
And then it fell into a flat spin, the crew ejected, and the rest you can
So
see.
explain to me, what kind of capabilities do you need to down an F-15?
Well, you need quite advanced, at least medium range in this case, probably medium range Iranian surface-to-air missile, for example. And it needs to have quite a hefty warhead, some 25, 30 kilogram, because shooting down an F-15 is not entirely easy, because it has such sophisticated controls that it can fly without specific parts of the airframe.
So tell me a little bit, Tom, who could have done this? Could this have happened from Iranian airspace or territory, or could it have happened from Kuwaiti territory itself? Who could be behind this, and how? From where could it have happened?
There are two options. One is that this aircraft was probably involved in intercepting incoming Iranian UAVs, and then Kuwait shot him down.
Would the Kuwait do that?
It could happen. It could happen. Why? Because both the surface-to-air missiles and the aircraft have to have identification of friend or foe equipment, which is synchronized. If it's not synchronized, the Kuwaitis are not going.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to a very, very special edition of Take 3. We are calling it Take 3 XL here because we've got Tom Cooper in the midst along with Raul Shivshankar and Zaka Jacob, and this is quasi the war room because there's so much that's happening in this entire Gulf conflict and this fury in the Gulf that one is worried and wondering, has Trump bitten off more than he can chew? Is there propaganda, and where is the truth? Is it somewhere in between? Because the Israelis are claiming something, the Iranians are claiming something, but the facts lie elsewhere. So who's going to be able to look at the facts? Is this going to get over in 4 days, or is it going to carry on till 40? And in that case, who then seizes the advantage? The other part, of course, we'll try and understand, are we queuing up for a third world war? Because already positions are being taken. And even friends are firing off at friends, verbally and quite physically too. Let's start with that. Raul Shivshankar, Zaka Jacob and Tom Cooper, good to have you with us. And I think you've been in the thick of things ever since you've decided to extend your stay here in India. How's it going for you? Have you ever covered war like this before? Let's start from there.
Well, in this fashion, certainly not. I would sit at home, check the messages from my contacts, check what is going on in social media, cross-check it and put it on my blog. But this time I'm a little bit hampered in this regard, so I'm here with you, and part of me is enjoying it, of course. The other part is worried about, especially civilian losses on both sides, you know. So it is always the same, you know. The wars are exciting to watch as long as one can watch them from the side, and not the least pleasant if one is taking part.
Absolutely. Zaka Jacob, this cause of collateral damage, civilians getting involved. Now all of that region has now been pulled in. Before we get into the nitty-gritties and understand that, this is going to put pressure on whom?
My view is the Iranians are doing this knowingly, because look at the targets that they are selecting, whether they are, you know, 5-star hotels. Well, obviously, American bases, American assets are being hit. Today, an Aramco oil field in Saudi Arabia was hit. What's the message that they're trying to send? They're trying to send a message that, look, we will basically drag the whole region in. This is not going to be restricted to just a U.S., Israel, and Iran war. That the entire region will pay the price for it. So this, I think, is a sign of someone who is desperate, who wants to show a high-value hit. I think the Iranians are really, you know, looking for that high-value target that they can take down and show to their people that, look, this is revenge. Now, what that high-value target is, it could be an American naval destroyer. It could be, you've just heard reports about 3 F-15s being brought down.
They claim to have bombed even Netanyahu's office. The Prime Minister's
I would take that with a sack of salt. I mean, I've been to Netanyahu's office. It's not an easy place to bomb. So yeah. So let's you know, keep that aside. The point is, they're looking for a high-value target. They brought down 3 F-15s is what we're given to understand. And I think that in itself is a big thing. But look, the big picture is this. Trump, speaking to the New York Times, said he expects this war to conclude in 4 to 6 weeks. I think it'll end before that. And that is, there's just one simple reason for it. That Trump, who is the principal protagonist in this, right? Tomorrow, if America decides, that's it, they're done. they're done with Operation Epic Fury, Israel will have no choice but to stop. Yeah. The question is, what will then the Iranians do? The Iranians will also stop because they have a finite amount of military armaments and hardware to keep going, right? 2,000 missiles, 5,000 missiles, whatever it is, it's a finite number. So they will have to stop at some point. So it really boils down to President Trump. And President Trump, we know, does not have the propensity for getting entangled in long drawn wars, foreign wars. His base doesn't like it. He's got the big political victory that he can show to his people. I've cut off the head of the snake. I've got Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Let's just get on with it. I mean, whoever is now the next president or the next leader of Iran, that's not something that Trump is particularly bothered about.
Right, there's already bickering happening. Now, you know, Rahul is there looking at all the updates in the news. Let's start with the first one. The F-16s, from there itself does the variance happen? Suddenly has the cost of this entire fury, epic fury, have taken epic proportions for the Americans?
Look, first of all, let's put the spin aside. See, I have a problem. When you go to war, you're going to accept and expect losses. That happens.
Yeah.
I found it very strange when Operation Sindoor took place. And some people said, oh, we must have lost the war because there were talk that there were some Rafales that came down. We don't know what aircraft came down. Mr. Trump would stand up and say 6, 7, maybe 8, maybe 9. Some people were speculating. Every day there was talk like that. It was loose talk, irresponsible talk, and it was a suggestion that losses equals defeat. You don't go into war if you're scared of losses. You will never go out of your bunker if you're scared that you're going to get hit. You'll never be a boxer if you can't take a punch. So let's put that aside. I'm really not interested in looking at that from that lens. What is interesting here is that this was supposed to be a war that was supposed to be over in a few days with a decapitation strike. The United States, and I'm not saying it, Trump said, we're going to flatten them out. In fact, just yesterday, he was saying that we have softened up the Iranians. And I think they're going to be on the table very soon, and we're going to have negotiations. Now, the Iranians have come out, Tom, and they've said nothing doing. We're not going to have negotiations. In fact, if you look at the people who are taking over, they're even more hardline than the existing bunch. So you have a situation now where the Americans have to countenance 3 or 4 things. Perhaps a longish conflict with a bigger time frame than they expected. Secondly, the fact that some of their allies are being hit, and they're going to worry a little bit because they've got into this on someone else's behalf. It's Israel and the US that are carrying out the action. They're getting collateral damage. There are a huge number of reports coming out of US consulates being attacked and shut down. In Kuwait, for example, the British said that they're going to help a little bit, and in Cyprus they take a hit. So clearly, the Iranians are using what is the equivalent of a drone, which is about a $40,000 munition, against these billions of dollars of Tomahawk cruise missiles and all of that. Now, I'm not saying that the Iranians are not being hit. It's very possible that Tehran, as we speak, is being reduced to what Berlin was reduced to in the Second World War. It could even be worse. You've seen the way Gaza was flattened out. You've seen many cities in Ukraine being flattened out. So that could very well happen to Tehran. The fact is, will that be enough to get the Guard, this bunch of clerics
IRGC.
And their allies, to say, okay, enough? But I just want to talk about these pictures now with you, Tom, because these pictures are interesting. In the morning, there was a picture of one jet, and we talked about it. I tweeted something because the Ministry of Defense of Kuwait said there were several aircraft. Now, CENTCOM comes out and says there were 3 aircraft and 6 pilots that have been rescued. Thank goodness there was no loss of life there. But it was friendly fire during an active combat where there were Iranian jets that came in and also drones. What is going on?
It is one of the ironic
See, this is the
situations in
statement.
this war.
You can read the statement
I read it.
and then break it down for us, because this is
okay,
it should add temper.
let's go sentence by sentence almost. During active combat, it included attacks from Iranian aircraft, which is absolutely because one would say, Israelis are claiming we have absolute dominance and whatever in the sky over Iran, and now all of a sudden we hear Iranian aircraft over Kuwait. Yeah. And the US Air Force fighter jets were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses. Okay, so mistakenly shot down, there is no friendly fire. The pilots always say this is blue on blue, because whoever is shooting at you is not friendly, friend or not. Obviously, as said, they didn't synchronize their operations with the Kuwaitis. They haven't adjusted their IFF systems. That means the Kuwaitis didn't recognize them as American, have opened fire at the best targets. These were the 3 or probably 4 F-15s, and they have shot 3 of these down. While considering there are no reports in this regard, Iranians came away. So this is what can be deducted from this.
Are you saying that the Iranians came in and then they went back because there's no talk about Iranian kills?
Yeah, exactly.
But then how can that be possible when the Israelis are
and this is
constantly
all on
saying,
Kuwaiti airspace, which the Americans are supposed to be watching very carefully.
Yeah, not only the Americans, the Kuwaitis as well.
I take that with a pinch of salt.
Sorry.
From whatever we've heard from the American side, the Israeli side, they had complete air dominance by Sunday, which is yesterday.
Yeah.
The Israeli air defenses were battered out. They could pretty much go in and do what they wanted to do. I would find it very surprising if there are Iranian aircraft in Kuwaiti airspace.
This is a CENTCOM statement. I mean, this is the Americans admitting.
Aircraft could be unmanned aerial vehicles too. I don't think
No,
it's
they've said
necessarily-
Iranian aircraft.
But what are the aircraft?
And
What-
drones.
I mean,
and drones.
They said
what known?
see,
you
they
know,
have said
what-
attacks from Iranian aircraft,
but what
ballistic
known-
missiles and drones.
It's
So
possible
clearly.
it's ballistic missiles and drones. We know Iranians have that. But what fighter jets do the Iranian Air Force have?
They have the F-4,
any.
F-5s.
F-5s.
Yeah, but I don't see them being able to go to the skies post Sunday, sometime in the day, where the Israelis and the Americans have said that they've established
But
air
something has
superiority
clearly happened.
over Iranian airspace.
If you permit me, I do not want to counter you or something or correct you. The fact is this: we shouldn't fall for the illusion that Israelis are now and the Americans exercising absolute 100%, 1,000% control over the Iranian airspace.
But how have they neutralized the air defenses of the Iranians?
I would like to see evidence that they have neutralized this defenses.
Unless they have, how are they able to carry out all of these multiple strikes?
That is
it's not just the strikes that happened on Saturday that took out Khamenei.
It is very
They've been striking for the better part of the last 48 hours.
Let's listen to the military expert.
It is very easy to explain. They are striking with long-range weaponry. Weaponry like spies, like what is around there?
Hammer, no.
No, Rampage. This is all
Rampage,
200, 300 kilometers. I'm talking about air-launched weaponry. Tomahawk is sea-launched, so let's keep it now out of the story, because how are they capable of striking targets by their aircraft, whether from inside or, let's say, from fringes of the Iranian airspace? That is the point. So, and then they launch, they approach, they enter Iranian airspace, so 50, perhaps 100 kilometers, launch this weapon which can fly 300 kilometers far, and then on basis of that they claim they have total aerial superiority. While what is crucial here, and we should never forget from this moment on, the IRGC is now obviously back in control mode. That means we can gauge this from these attacks on Cyprus, on Incirlik, and such facilities, oil refineries. That means nowadays these are not single exceptions like yesterday. And this means that they are now actually in guerrilla mode. They are now hiding, they are nowhere around, nowhere to be seen, well hidden, and coming out only to act. And any guerrilla that is still alive is winning. It is as simple as that. This is the experience number 1 to 1,000.
See, it's the same sentiment that's come from the Ayatollah Arafi. Now, this is what he's saying. This is the interim leader who's been appointed. He's saying victory is with the Iranian nation. Iran's current resistance against the American Zionist enemy is being carried out with the design of martyr Khamenei. And they've also targeted a 6th ship in the Strait of Hormuz, saying that no type of ship has a right to pass through Strait Hormuz.
Here's the thing. The only real leverage the Iranians have is being able to shut off the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
That will affect, it will affect India, it will affect China.
Yes.
That's really the only leverage that they have. Now, this whole thing about the statement from the new leader, he's one of 3. They're part of an expert group of 3 leaders who will govern in an interim fashion. Ayatollah Arafi. Right, he's not the next leader of Iran.
The next
leader of Iran will be decided by the Assembly of Experts.
Yeah.
So look, the point I'm making is simply this: that all of this is bluster, right? If they're seeking revenge, which they've avowedly done, which is their stated objective now, their leader, a man who's ruled that country for the last almost 40 years, has been taken out. The only revenge for that is either taking out Bibi Netanyahu or taking out Donald Trump. They can't do that. A bunch of F-15s going down over Kuwait is not revenge.
That's not revenge.
And simply the Iranians don't have the capability to take out either of these two leaders.
No, that's not revenge. The question that's being asked is, 3 F-15s have downed at a time when
you think the Americans care? You think they care?
Trump
you think Trump gives... Exactly. He doesn't give a damn. The point is simply this. He's got the biggest prize. This is his legacy. When Donald Trump demits office in 2028, this is what will be written against his name. He's the guy who took out Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Just like with Barack Obama, it will always be remembered he's the man who took out or the president who took out.
But the question is...
Yeah, Netanyahu too, absolutely.
But the question is to what effect? See, the Al-Qaeda, for example, yes, you took out bin Laden, but bin Laden was in retirement by then. He was sitting and watching pornography in a room in Pakistan. Let's be absolutely factual about that. Other people had taken over the organization. This is a Hydra-headed monster. You can chop off 6 heads. Yes, you can have the trophies on your mantelpiece and say, look, I got this guy. But the fact is there are others stepping in. Those lives are also dispensable.
No, look at this. They've also now got a defense minister in place. Majid bin al-Rasha has now already come in as a defense minister. Despite that entire leadership being wiped out, they've got somebody who's come in and taken control. And that's why, like you said, their command now seems to be centralized again. And it's coordinated. When an Iran is working like this, then that means that this is going to get dragged down. The cost of war is going to increase along with the cost of oil per barrel. It's increasing by the hour. If not, in some time, it will start increasing by the minute. And that is something the world will look at. If you see, Turkey, China, Russia, Pakistan. Okay, Pakistan is like in Hindi mein kehte na bin pendi ka lota. It's got no side, it's got no back because it's got a security arrangement Saudi Arabia and it's supporting Iran and offering its bases to the Americans. So they are okay. They are a doormat. Everybody steps on them. But these nations are already coming in towards one group.
The problem I feel for, and please, I would like you to hold forth on this. I think the problem for Iran might be that they might run out of munitions. Is that a possibility? And
yes,
where will they... Okay,
he has a take on that.
Okay,
on the
please
oil
tell
balance,
us, tell us.
The point is this. As long as they can shoot at least 1 missile a day at Israel, again, this is guerrilla. They are now in guerrilla mode. And as long as they can shoot at least 1 missile at Israel, or 1 UAV at United Arab Emirates, yes, Bahrain, Kuwait, whoever, Saudi Arabia, they are in the game, just like Houthis. Look the same. And the Israelis are of the kind who cannot resist. They must revenge immediately. They are going to strike. So the war is going to go on. The issue is, however, the Iranians can literally do it yourself, make the missiles, just like Houthis are often doing with parts that have been smuggled over Oman to them in Yemen. And then you have this 1 missile with 2,000 kilometers range, falls apart while actually over Riyadh, while still flying in the direction of Israel, but it is a threat. You cannot ignore it. And then the Israelis come over with $100 million strike with F-16s, F-15s, tank aircraft, electronic supports, plus search and rescue measures and whatever else. It costs a fortune. Plus, what it costs them to intercept this missile if it comes down. So
and look at what we're seeing. Satellite images show damage at U.S. 5th Fleet Naval Base in Bahrain's Manama.
Yeah.
See the before and after pictures. And you can see these pictures here. I'm trying to sort of get them out so we can try and project them. But there are signs that this is not exactly one way.
No, not just one way. The point is 2 bases are gone. The Bahrain base is damaged. The other base in UAE has also suffered serious damage. That means there is no replenishment for the Americans.
So look, Anand, it's a very simple, it boils down to, for the Americans, it boils down to body bags. If there are too many American soldiers who are dead and being brought back to the US, that's when pressure will come to bear.
Otherwise, it's not going to
come. There is no pressure that's going to be brought to bear.
My concern is larger. Tom, I'm just saying, if this drags on for more than a week and beyond a week, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, will somebody somewhere snap and go too far up the escalation ladder? Will there be a quasi-nuke threat that then emerges, especially when nations start taking positions. Already Trump is barraging the Brits, saying, how can you allow whatever is happening with Diego Garcia and not allowing us, and you didn't guard the Cyprus airbase. Why did you not do it? So,
because you have asked if somebody is going to snap. If we gauge them by performance during the war with Iraq in the 1980s, Iranians are not going to be the first to snap, or at least not going to snap for the next 8 years.
They are
like that. And Israel is not going to stop. Even if there is a ceasefire, we've seen Israel violating every single ceasefire, no matter with him, for decades already. In 1973, they have violated.
So you see this dragging on?
So actually, this is going to go on in one form or the other. The question is just how many others are going to remain involved or not.
So now, if this starts going, let's look at another part. For us, it's going to start hurting when not just India, but a lot of this region, because oil has jumped in the last 15 days from $60 to $62 per barrel to today it's nearly touching $87 per barrel. Look at that jump.
It hasn't been at 100 or 120 in about 4 years.
Yeah, when the Russia-Ukraine war
began. Exactly. And let me tell you that, again, Tehran Times is reporting that we're going to have no negotiations with the U.S. top security officials. So they're digging their heels in. And the Strait of Hormuz is shut completely. That's the other update that has come through. So the pain factor will increase. And let me tell you, it's not as if both Netanyahu and Trump, and you were there in Israel, that Netanyahu is the most popular guy around.
No, he's not.
And of course, I was asking a couple of MPs right now, and they said there is bipartisan support for this and so on and so forth, because as you were saying, people will look at this and say, look, at least we've knocked out the head of the
Hydra.
The Hydra or whatever it is. But fundamentally, in America, it's a different ballgame altogether. Already there are noises coming from the opposition that no clearances were sought from Congress and so on and so forth. So obviously the appetite there, and it's a democracy.
No,
so
and Trump is really under the pump because of all the other factors that have been weighing in on him, on the Epstein files, all the other, I mean, he's just lost
Is there truth to all of this? There's huge chatter on social media. I want to ask you, gents, and it's been there in my head. They say that the time the Epstein files happened, and Bill Gates apologized. There are 2-3 things which are being spoken about. Pakistan invades Afghanistan or attacks Afghanistan, and then Trump goes out because suddenly Epstein is not being spoken about, or Epstein files are not.
Look, I think these are disparate.
Prince Andrew gets out. All of that.
I don't think they are necessarily connected. I think as far as the Iran operation is concerned, for the last 2 months they've been building up. Trump has called it the Armada. From January onwards, ever since the Maduro operation got over, they've been moving their assets in some form or the other to Iran. So this was very much on expected lines, which is why it's so surprising to me that for the last 2 months, the entire world and their uncles have been talking about America, Israel, joint operation, taking out the Iranian leadership. All 50 of them were in one building.
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of intelligence do you have that the top guys are all in one building in broad daylight? So I think, look, I'm very, very clear about this. Trump wants a quick victory. He already has the biggest prize that he would have hoped for, which is, like I keep saying, the head of the snake. That's done. Now the question is, what will it take for the Iranians to stop? He has to offer the Iranians an off-ramp.
Here's the
What
thing.
is that off-ramp?
But here's the thing. Is Trump okay with Khamenei dead but not solving the problem?
He doesn't care. What do you think happened in
care.
Venezuela?
He doesn't
can't care less.
Exactly. He couldn't
Absolutely
care less.
not.
He doesn't care.
He says one thing in the morning, 5 minutes later he cannot recall that he has said that and says something entirely different. He's so careless.
So more breaking news coming in. Iranian
Yeah.
Security Chief Ali Larijani has denied that he reached out to Washington via Oman. So you were talking about Trump lying or what have you. Because a few days ago, Trump said, on Sunday, that is yesterday, that Iran's interim leaders were willing to enter ceasefire talks and reveal operations there had been designed to last 4 weeks or a shorter time if Tehran came to the table to agree on a nuclear weapon deal. I was hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that even the United States has a limited stockpile of weapons right now in this area.
Much.
So can you talk a little bit about
Not
that?
only in this area. 2 weeks ago, the Joint Chiefs of Staff have briefed Trump on the coming operation, and they have told him, listen, we have enough for 7 or 8 days of war.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Overall, that's it, because there is shortage of interceptors already from the last year. They have spent so many surface-to-air missiles in order to shut down so many Iranian ballistic missiles in June last year. So they couldn't rebuild these stocks in a matter of less than within 8 months. because the production rates are too low. Production rates are too low because everybody in the West was sitting and waiting for 4 years to see what's going to happen in Ukraine, and everybody is expecting this is going to be over.
But it's not over.
Further to what Trump has said, I think yesterday he spoke to the New York Times and to Wall Street Journal. Today he's spoken to the Daily Telegraph, the London paper, and he said, we always estimated for 4 weeks, but we also anticipated it could end in 2 to 3 weeks. We've taken out some of the leadership on day 1, so that was well ahead of schedule. So I think this will end well before 4 weeks.
You think this will end well before 4 weeks? But somewhere the Iranians seem to have dug in their heels and saying, unless you take us all out, till the last person standing, the last drone, the last ballistic missile, and the last IRGC person standing, we're going to continue to fight. Now, and the longer this drags on, the more they will start gaining momentum, because the Chinese will recalibrate, the Russians will recalibrate, support will start recalibrating.
But none of them are supporting the Iranians. Why are they not supporting the Iranians? I mean, they've just taken out the supreme leader. How have the Chinese and the Russians... I mean, President Putin spoke to a bunch of world leaders, but what military support are the Russians giving?
Russians are not going to provide. They are not providing any kind of military support to Iran. They're not going to change that anytime soon.
They have their own war.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say. Even if they would have the weaponry, they wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't do it because they got their own war to fight.
Is now so busy, they are not delivering S-400s to India, which you have ordered in 2018, because they don't have them, because they need them on their own. So why should they start now selling them to Iran?
Trump is having a bit of a hissy fit. He's saying he's very disappointed with the UK, the closest ally, brothers, saying that you're not allowing us Diego Garcia. Why does he want Diego Garcia to be in play?
Because it's a crucial air base in the central, okay, not entirely central Indian Ocean, constructed specially for US bombers and tank aircraft. Diego Garcia is granting them freedom of operation. That means they can, right now they are foremost attacking Iran from the west, which means that the Iranians can also arrange their air defenses accordingly, hidden or not. They are not powering their radars up, so the other side gets the impression, oh, there is nothing left, we have destroyed everything. But actually they are hiding, and just waiting for their moment until somebody appears, then pop, one missile, perhaps they are going to hit, perhaps not. But just think of it. One US or Israeli aircraft shot down over Iran, and one pilot captured. This is a major coup. Should that happen, for example.
Should that happen?
This is the way they are thinking.
And that's the reason why largely they have not entered the Iranian airspace. They've just come right up there and fired their missiles or bombed in a way that's where.
So, for example, the missile that took... Okay, you're...
No, they make a point that they're going to wind up.
The missile that took out Khamenei, it's called the Black Sparrow. It's an Israeli missile. Was fired from 200 kilometers away. So it's well outside of...
outside.
So that's probably longer.
Probably longer.
That's exactly what we've been saying all along, that they don't want boots on ground. They don't want anything to capture. More importantly, they don't want a hostage situation that gives the Iranians any inch to be able to try and wiggle out of a position where they want to corner them. But is that going to happen? Will the Iranians give up without a fight? We'll have to wait and watch. But for the moment now, we're going to call it a pause here on the Take 3 XL. But this is going to keep coming till the time this fury in the Gulf rages on. Thank you, gents. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's exactly the point that we've also been discussing, and Tom was also saying that the target is meant to be these US assets in these ally countries, but because these are densely populated areas, they are inadvertently hitting civilian targets, because if civilians were indeed the target, the casualties could have been in hundreds.
That is, to use the American terminology, collateral damage.
Right, right. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, the sheer escalatory nature of this, as Ambassador Dogra was also highlighting, they've gone on to ask for Germany's help. They're also trying to involve France over here, because, say, UK has already reacted. In fact, Sir Keir Starmer also spoke about their fleet being involved. But if NATO were to get involved, what is the end game of this war? If NATO and these Middle Eastern US allies were to get involved, what happens?
So look,
and Iran has already indicated that they are not looking towards any negotiations now.
Yeah, Kanchal, it's too early for Iranians to talk about negotiations. It's just, again, this is something, not what is being fought between two street people. That also goes for a very long time. We are fighting a war with two military powers and two nations and two ideologies which are totally disparate and different. And it's about survival of Iranian regime's thought process, which is absolutely contrarian to this thing. While the Gulf states have already changed their thought process and they have aligned to the Western ideology to a great extent, but Iranians are totally polar opposite and they have never changed their views for last about 45, 50 years. They remain where they remain. So to believe that is going to just crumble, IRGC is not just not a slap dog onto a street that they can wish away. They will fight, they will control, and this will go on for some time. But I just want to add both the countries, the Israelis and Americans, and a lot of time people are saying that Trump has put Israel first this time. I don't think so. I think it's a war of Americans with Iran, and it is something to do with the Chinese. It is just not about Iran itself.
Yes,
So
I'm
let's
glad you said that.
put out- Yeah, so I think I told last time also on your this thing on your channel, but American immediate political objective is to change the strategic orientation of Iran. They should give up the ballistic missile systems, and because that was threat not only to America but more importantly to Gulf states eventually. So if you recall, while Saudi Crown Prince has said about a month back they will not allow their own airspace and ground to be attacked for Iran. But the fact of the matter is that he was the one who went urging, and Trump has said as much, that he came to me and telling this is going to be eventually a challenge. Because when the ballistic missile numbers, which in 2027 they were aiming to make to 8,000, that crosses, and the speed of missile crosses, there was no way Saudis could have protected themselves. So that is one, I think they want to change. The second, they want to change orientation was about the nuclear ambition. With 440 kgs of uranium lying with them for 60% enriched, it was just a matter of time, I think, in a couple of months. Right? The process of integrating, process of weaponizing further takes time, but they would have had the capability to use nuclear weapons. So this was, I think, the Americans wanted, but look at it from the Iranian side. Iran is a sovereign nation. They wanted to have a weapon, nuclear weapons. When Pakistan, which is a terror state, known terror state, can have nuclear weapons and Americans can continue to engage with them, Israel can have in the region, why should not Iran have its own? So I think these were two polarized actions that are taking place, and both have their own mission, and therefore they are both legitimate to fight the war, even at the cost of regional conflict with a global implication. I guess that's how the world works. Not a good world, but yes.
Yeah, and even when it comes to Iran's nuclear ambitions, we've seen a lot of ups and downs, and that's where the United States began playing a key role and almost now dictating to Iran on what it must do next. Hold on, gentlemen, I'll come back to you in just a bit. I want to quickly go across to Shivani. She's being joined by Tom. We need to break down the story, take you through the latest visuals coming in, and also an overview, an analysis of what the impact of this conflict could look like. Shivani, over to you.
Thanks a lot. We're focusing on that F-15 downing that has taken place in Kuwaiti airspace. And these are the visuals of at least one of those American pilots. He's sitting in the boot of a car, lying down. And we can easily identify, Tom, that this is the American uniform and the American airman.
By his khaki uniform, for example, and G-suit and the survival gear tied to his belly, for example. This is clearly a U.S. Air Force airman.
But there would be two pilots, isn't it?
Yes, in an F-15E, there would be two of them. I haven't seen the video showing both of parachutes, so I don't know what happened to the second gentleman.
You can hold this mic as well, Tom,
Yes.
since I have my own. So the other pilots' whereabouts, we don't know.
We don't know.
only managed
Right now,
to really get information on one of the pilots. So one of the pilots is secure, and these must be the Kuwaiti people who must have intercepted this downed pilot, but they're going to take him to the US base now.
probably to the US base or to the Kuwaiti police, Kuwaiti armed forces, and then to the US base.
Yeah. How rare is it for an F-15 to be downed?
Quite rare. It is actually...
Has it happened?
It has happened. I'm currently counting in my head. It's some 4th or 5th combat loss in total.
Okay.
Over 30
so it's
years.
Pretty rare. So it's pretty
Since 1991, yes. Very pretty rare, yes.
This is that footage.
This
What
is the
can you make-
F-15.
What can you make of this footage?
Well, you can make that it's an F-15 by two fins. You can make it by the form of its plan form of its wing. You can make it out by, if you look under the intakes, there are pods. These are targeting pods, navigation and targeting pods, which this is what you see then the video of bombs striking. This is usually taken by this pod under the aircraft. And you can see that the engines are burning.
What does that mean?
That probably the explosion was behind the aircraft, approximately here, causing damage to the engines. Probably removing one of the slabs. This is the stabilizers, because the right one is visible, the left one not. So this is why it lost control. And then it fell into a flat spin. The crew ejected, and the rest you can see.
Explain to me, what kind of capabilities do you need to down an F-15?
Well, you need quite advanced, at least medium range in this case, probably medium range Iranian surface-to-air missile, for example. And it needs to have quite a hefty warhead, some 25, 30 kilogram, because shooting down an F-15 is not entirely easy, because it has such sophisticated controls that it can fly without specific parts of the airframe.
So tell me a little bit, Tom.
Thank you so much for staying with us here on CNN News 18. You're watching our continuous coverage on the developments that are taking place in West Asia. Both the Iranian side and the Israeli-American side are claiming to have attacked each other's assets. What really is the truth? What is hyperbole? We'll try and sift through that and get you more details. India, of course, is watching closely as well. In fact, we have information that's now trickling in via our sources within the Indian intelligence agencies. And they are now suggesting that Iran's escalation in the Gulf is not an impulsive one. It's a calculated existential gamble. What we're learning is now that the Strait of Hormuz is being used by Iran as a strategic leverage to inflict global oil pain, especially. What they want to do is they want to force Washington to reconsider this pressure, all of which will be driven by oil, all of which will be driven by choking the Strait of Hormuz, and that's something that Iran is choosing to do at the moment. My colleague Anand Narasimhan now joins us, getting us more details on this. Anand, Indian intelligence agencies are also keeping a close watch as to what's transpiring and what the next course of action will be for us. What more are you gathering?
Well, Manoj Kumar Gupta getting us these details, Poonam, and to our viewers, good evening. What their assessment is that this is more an existential ploy. It is deliberate that they are doing it, and I think many entities would have already gamed Iran trying to do something to ensure that there is no traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Because right now, China buys 80 to 90% of Iran's exported oil via shadow fleet tankers that continue moving even now. So Iran is going to ensure, and it also has a pipeline all the way up to Chabahar. So it will continue to supply to the world. There are experts who believe that it has already extracted billions of barrels of oil and kept a stockpile elsewhere away from the war zone, from where it can sell it to the highest bidder or at market rates, current market rates, and continue to raise fund and funded this war for the next 60 days, if not more. But more importantly, Indian intelligence agencies believe that China is operating in the shadows. It is actually injecting billions that fund the IRGC missiles, drones and proxies, and Chinese refineries and dual-use tech transfers like missile components, navigation systems, and Krink Alliance logistics allow Tehran to absorb short-term export losses. So in terms of cutting down their funds and cutting down the way they can actually fund this war, and to dry their coffers, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And Indian agencies are saying that without Beijing's economic and technical backing, Iran cannot sustain this high-stakes Hormuz play. So unless China is moved out of the equation, or China is pinched economically or in terms of energy resources, there will not be anything that is going to stop Iran from trying to block the Strait of Hormuz. And the reality is that the deeper end of the Strait of Hormuz flies closer to Iran. And that's why they can continue to try and take out ships or tankers which are trying to make their way into the Persian Gulf, into some of the other Gulf nations. So it's the 6th ship that they have targeted. And they're saying that China's take, where 50% of its own oil imports via Hormuz gives Tehran advantage, that Beijing is quietly shielding the regime. So unless this is nipped by the Americans, who may have gamed it, who may not have gamed it, but they will have to ensure that China hurts and Iran is not able to supply its oil to anybody, including China.
Right.
Till then, this is not going to end any soon.
Right, Anand, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. India, of course, keeping a close watch as to what transpires. There is going to be some amount of hit as far as supply chains of oil, of crude, of LPG is concerned. That's something that India is wary of as well, and keeping all of that in mind. But even as we speak of what the Indian agencies are doing or wanting to do, there are fresh inputs coming in of attacks that are taking place from both sides. In fact, the latest one is that there is carpet bombing as far as the capital of Iran, Tehran, is concerned. We're seeing bombs go off in multiple parts of Tehran, in the capital city. These visuals that you see on your screens there, it's an entire array of explosions that you see, black smoke billowing out of the skyline of Tehran. That's the latest that is coming in, and this is something, these visuals, this video is something that has been released by the Iranian media themselves, going on to show the kind of onslaught that the Israeli side or the American side is unleashing on Iran as the two sides continue to strike each other's assets, also strike the assets of their allies, especially in case of Iran, where not only are they targeting Israel, but they're also targeting several assets of the United States in that Gulf region. My colleague Sanjay Suri now joins us, getting us more details on this. Sanjay, both sides there is no let-up as far as the fighting goes. Strikes have been conducted both in Iran, as the Tehran media is also putting out.
Well, certainly it is a fight from both sides, which is not quite what Israel and the US had been expecting. They had expected to launch a smothering attack that completely erases the capacity of Iran to hit back, that it destroys their leadership, it destroys their will. And Trump said so in so many words while announcing the attack, that this is really a threat, a taste of more to come. And seeing this and experiencing this, they want a surrender. Now, that has not happened and is not looking like happening anytime soon. Iran is keeping up quite a missile barrage going. We've seen it hit Israel itself. We've seen it hit the Gulf region, which is along the lines of the warnings that it had delivered. And so far, the attacks have been continuing. And we just saw very recently in Beersheba, very close to Tel Aviv, where a missile got through. It passed the air defenses. So this is a relative success for Iran, given what was believed to be its capacity or incapacity to launch a significant attack. It's now really going to be a matter of numbers. Who runs out of missiles first? Will it be Iran? Will it be the US and Israel? There is a limit to both, and that limit was tested and exposed in the June war of last year. It's a question of who has more tenacity, who has more supplies, and there is a further question whether the Iranians are holding back on some of their missiles, or whether a lot of those have been destroyed in attacks carried out by Israel and the US. Now that is a question that only the next few days will answer.
Absolutely, there is no let-up, both sides digging in their heels, and this is not something that the United States expected. Sanjay, do stay on with us because we have more information that's now trickling in, developments taking place in a fast-paced manner in Iran, where the Iranian president has now appointed the IRGC general as the acting defense minister. The predecessor or the defense minister before this was killed, remember, in the Israeli-US strikes. So now there is a chain of command that is being set as far as the Israeli defense minister is concerned. Siddhant now joins us, getting us more details on this. Siddhant, Iran trying to get its act together both in terms of its military and political leadership.
Well, that's right, Poonam. Look, it's a very, very challenging time for regime. In fact, the supreme leader has been assassinated. Along with him, the other 40 senior officials, members of supreme leader secretariat, the group of clerics, etc., were also killed the other day in the strike conducted by U.S. and Israeli forces. So the challenge for the regime, Poonam, right now is to put right people at the right place, and also those who are loyal to the regime, those who believe in the ideology and the working of regime. And this is the reason that the successor of Ali Khamenei has not been announced yet, because there are many such positions which have got vacant. Those positions are critical in running the country, in advising the supreme leader, in advising the president. So all these positions got vacant after US strikes, and perhaps now the people are being appointed on those positions after scrutiny, after going through their track record, and also the loyalty towards the regime. So now this is the fresh announcement. Perhaps we will be expecting more such announcements to be made by Iran in days to come. As I said, that these positions are very, very critical, Poonam, especially in war-like situation.
Absolutely.
So right person at right place who is loyal to the regime is perhaps the criteria right now.
Absolutely, and that's what they are looking at. But this comes at a time when the fighting continues on the sidelines. In fact, the latest information that's now trickled in is that there are missiles that have been fired at US and Israeli enemy targets. This is a fresh offensive that we see by Iran at military targets of the United States. Remember, the United States has several such assets in the Gulf region, in West Asia, and that's something that is the target at the moment as far as Iran goes. This is one of those missiles that has been fired by the Iranian side. Where has it been fired from? What the intended target is? The details, of course, are trickling in. Sanjay continues to be with us, getting us those details. And these kind of explosions, these kind of missile blasts, that's something that seems to have been routine from both sides in the last 72 hours, isn't it?
Yes, and it is significant that, Poonam, we are speaking of both sides, because the air superiority of Israel and the US was taken for granted. And a lot of that really comes from the media. We saw images of all these deadly-looking planes taking off from the Abraham Lincoln. We saw the Gerald Ford sailing, and pictures of F-35s in the sky, and the capacity of the Patriot defense system, the THAAD defense systems. These are the most sophisticated weapon systems in the world. THAAD is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, together with the Patriot, are the best systems there are.
Right.
Israel has them. The US has deployed them for Israel, in Israel, and yet they are not able to stop so many of these missiles coming in. Israel has these 3 layers of defense, the Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow, all these supposed to have been between them, providing a cover that's impenetrable. Again, this has not been 100% effective. There is, of course, no such thing as 100% foolproof defense at all, but the numbers of Iranian missiles getting through is significant. That said,
absolutely,
on the other hand, there is a lot of weapons being delivered into Iran. They're hitting targets with devastating accuracy, hitting a lot of them, just flattening them out. How far that will aid in a regime change within IRGC, whether it will scare the IRGC into surrender to whoever, we don't know. But regime change, yes, in name and face, yes.
Yes.
But the regime as an entity stays in place in Iran.
Absolutely, and that's the message that Tehran wants to send out to the world as well. For the moment, Sanjay, thank you so much for getting us the latest. Our non-stop coverage here on CNN News 18 will continue, but it's a wrap from my side. Thank you so much for tuning in.
That's exactly the point that we've also been discussing, and Tom was also saying that the target is meant to be these US assets in these ally countries, but because these are densely populated areas, they are inadvertently hitting civilian targets, because if civilians were indeed the target, the casualties could have been in hundreds.
That is, to use the American terminology, collateral damage.
Right, right. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, the sheer escalatory nature of this, as Ambassador Dogra was also highlighting, they've gone on to ask for Germany's help. They're also trying to involve France over here, because, say, UK has already reacted. In fact, Sir Keir Starmer also spoke about their fleet being involved. But if NATO were to get involved, What is the end game of this war if NATO and these Middle Eastern US allies were to get involved? Indicated that they are not looking towards any negotiations now.
Yeah, Kanchal, it's too early for Iranians to talk about negotiations. It's just, again, this is something not what is being fought between two street people. That also goes for a very long time. We are fighting a war with two military powers and two nations and two ideologies which are totally disparate and different. And it's about survival of Iranian regime's thought process, which is absolutely contrarian to this thing. While the Gulf states have already changed their thought process and they have aligned to the Western ideology to a great extent, but Iranians are totally polar opposite and they have never changed their views for the last about 45, 50 years. They remain where they remain. So to believe that it's going to just crumble, IRGC is not just not a slapdog onto a street that they can wish away. They will fight, they will control, and this will go on for some time. But I just want to add both the countries, the Israelis and Americans, and a lot of times people are saying that Trump has put Israel first this time. I don't think so. I think it's a war of Americans with Iran, and it is something to do with the Chinese. It is just not about Iran itself.
Yes,
So
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, so I think I told last time also on your this thing on your channel, but American immediate political objective is to change the strategic orientation of Iran. They should give up the ballistic missile systems, and because that was threat not only to America but more importantly to Gulf states eventually. So if you recall, while Saudi Crown Prince has said about a month back they will not allow their own airspace and ground to be attacked for Iran. But the fact of the matter is that he was the one who went urging, and Trump has said as much, that he came to me and telling this is going to be eventually a challenge. Because when the ballistic missile numbers, which in 2027 they were aiming to make to 8,000, that crosses, and the speed of missile crosses, there was no way Saudis could have protected themselves. So that is one, I think they want to change. The second, they want to change orientation was about the nuclear ambition. With 440 kgs of uranium lying with them for 60% enriched, it was just a matter of time, I think, in a couple of months. Right? The process of integrating, process of weaponizing further takes time, but they would have had the capability to use nuclear weapons. So this was, I think, the Americans wanted, but look at it from the Iranian side. Iran is a sovereign nation. They wanted to have a weapon, nuclear weapons. When Pakistan, which is a terror state, known terror state, can have nuclear weapons and Americans can continue to engage with them, Israel can have in the region, why should not Iran have its own? So I think these were two polarized actions that are taking place, and both have their own mission, and therefore they are both legitimate to fight the war, even at the cost of regional conflict with a global implication. I guess that's how the world works. Not a good world, but yes.
Yeah, and even when it comes to Iran's nuclear ambitions, we've seen a lot of ups and downs, and that's where the United States began playing a key role and almost now dictating to Iran on what it must do next. Hold on, gentlemen, I'll come back to you in just a bit. I want to quickly go across to Shivani. She's being joined.
Was possible for this regime to inflict on us, that their plan basically was to burn our whole country down in one way or another from all directions. Yes, this is a relatively successful moment for us to be able to face down what have so far been just over a couple of ballistic missiles, and still an astounding amount of heavy munitions. But yes, the air defenses are robust here. We have the support of the United States and the region and other allies as well. And we're standing firm. People really do adhere to the different guidelines. We're taking shelter, but it has been steady. Yeah, I mean, every hour, if not more often than that, we've had air raid sirens and missile attacks, drones. And then Hezbollah, sort of surprising us at 2 in the morning, also started firing out of Lebanon to a small degree, at least, relatively.
Okay, thanks very much, David. Thanks very much for taking this time out. We're doing a joint broadcast. We've been doing it over the last few days. It began, of course, with the visit of the Indian Prime Minister to Israel. The conflict in West Asia has entered its third day, with escalating violence across the region. In the latest development, Iran has reportedly struck an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. This has been happening over the last few hours. The Saudi Ministry of Energy announced that a limited fire at the Ras Tunara
refinery of, there you can see those pictures in the middle of your screens of the Saudi Aramco company is under control and has had no impact on oil supply. So that's something that we've been told. Meanwhile, a US F-15 fighter jet crashed in Kuwait. Though the pilot ejected safely, Kuwait authorities are investigating this case. The cause of this incident, Iran claims it has inflicted significant damage on the US assets in the region, including alleged drone strikes on bases in Kuwait and Bahrain and missile attacks on the USS Abraham Lincoln. All of those, of course, we haven't been able to independently verify. But what we can tell you is that that was actually friendly fire. That wasn't an Iranian action that led to that F-15 falling from the sky and the pilot ejecting. And the pilot, as you can see in the middle of your screens, was sequestered in the boot of a car by some sympathizers. Kuwait's Ministry of Defense can also tell you that siren sounds across central Israel and Jerusalem area amid an Iranian ballistic missile attack. Meanwhile, early warnings also issued in southern Israel as more projectiles are fired. That's the latest coming in. Let's also take you through some of the news reports we've been filing through our affiliates in CNN. And before that, I just want to go straight across to Akanksha for more on information that is coming through. Akanksha, what can you tell us?
Rahul, the images that we are getting in of the attack that's taken place on the US Embassy in Kuwait are going on to indicate that this has been a significant attack because the plumes of smoke billowing out of the embassy, much of it has in fact been caught in fire as well. Kuwait has openly admitted, let me show it to my video journalist Arpit over here. If you can see, this doesn't seem like an ordinary attack. If Arpit can focus on this image that's been released by AFP, this is an attack that took place at the US Embassy in Kuwait. Remember, Kuwait has confirmed that one person has also died in Kuwait. This as they have been intercepting a